And we're glad to have you here with us alongside Michigan's retirement coach, certified financial planner, Mike Douglas, who is here to share insight on what he wants you to know about. And if you've got questions that you need Mike to help you figure out the answer to, you can start that conversation. Find us at michigansretirementcoach.com. We also have links posted in the show notes, so you can click there. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search Michigan's Retirement Coach on YouTube, and you can get a whole plethora of Mike Douglas ideas and insights, a cornucopia, a superabundance of knowledge he is ready to share with you regarding your retirement savings. It is the cornucopia season, the season of abundance, the season of abundance.
Thanks.
Sometimes it's excess and gluttony, if we're being honest with ourselves.
Well, that's why you wear Thanksgiving sweatpants, but yeah.
Thanksgiving pants. Pregnancy pants, maternity pants, as Joey wore on Friends.
Yes.
Thinking about the years that we are hoping to have in our retirement, it's getting longer and longer, which should be a good thing, unless you haven't planned correctly. That's, I guess, the downfall of the long retirements. We're all living longer, which should be celebrated, but if we're not planning accordingly, it can bite you in the butt. So that's what you're here to help us figure out. George Carlin, legendary comedian. We were talking before. I can't believe that I can't believe it's 16 years since he passed. Time flies when you're living life.
Yeah.
Timeless comedy, though.
I think we just see his clips so often that it's like,
that's what it is.
It feels like he's not gone. Like his clips still hit.
And also he looked the same for so long. Like he had that George Carlin look about him. I feel like for
old
40
since he
years.
was young.
Right.
Yeah.
He was just, so everything looks the same. And a lot of his stuff, a lot of the things he talks about are timelessly funny. So it's just as relevant now. Case in point, the idea about getting older.
As soon as I was in my 40s, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, well, I guess I'm getting older. Older sounds a little better than old, doesn't it? Sounds like it might even last a little longer. And it's okay, because thanks to our fear of death in this country, I won't have to die. I'll pass away. Or I'll expire like a magazine subscription.
Or a gallon of milk in the refrigerator.
Yes.
Ah, America. The world of holiday gluttony, the country of holiday gluttony, and also marketing. We can spin a phrase or a story, though, can't we?
Oh, yeah. Deal with the things we don't want to deal with. Yeah.
Just spin it to make it more pleasant sounding and feeling. Thinking about our retirement, though, again, the longevity factor has, interestingly enough, it's actually become a retirement risk. Longevity, because of if you live too long, you run out of money. So for this generation and generations to come, we need to start thinking about retirement in a 20 to 30 year perspective, if not even longer than that. With that in mind, from your experience level, what do we need to be factoring and considering and planning for then?
Yeah, there's quite a few things that factor in, but when Social Security first came around in the 30s, the average life expectancy for people was about 67. And so they started paying you at 65, and they basically had to pay you for 2 years. So that kind of shows us where we've come from, where in under 100 years, we've extended life expectancy by almost 15 to 20 years. And it's not uncommon to hear someone get into the 90s anymore. I mean, we have several clients who are in their 90s right now. So it's not
the flip
that
side
crazy.
of it, if you hear somebody that passed away in their 60s, my response is, oh, so young,
Wow,
what happened?
so
Obviously, they suffered some terrible illness.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not, and they're not even like some coal miner who got the black lung, right? It's like a regular person.
Yeah.
Right? And so now granted, there's a lot of other issues that are causing it, but it is interesting to see more and more people living longer. The number one fear, studies show that the number one fear for retirees is not death. It's running out of money early. Because there's one thing we can do something about, the other one we really can't do anything about. When it's I have a friend who says, when the pickle truck hits you, the pickle truck hits you, and that's, there's nothing you can do about it. But there are people living longer and longer, and we need to make sure that our resources make it as long as we do. My grandfather just turned 94 and he's still driving himself to Lions Club meetings and doing all these different things, and still serves at church and does a lot of stuff. So he still stays very involved. I had this one client who came through, his name is Granville, which is just a great old person name, Granville. He's a sweet, sweet, sweet man. And
His first name is
Granville.
Granville.
Yeah. It's such a great old person
That is
name.
classic. Yeah.
I loved it. And it literally speaks to like a great time in life. But think about the things. When I met him, he was 96.
Wow.
That's crazy. So think about the things he had seen. And this is a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he told me stories of growing up in Detroit in the 20s and 30s. And the life he lived in Detroit for a long time.
Yeah.
And he literally saw it go from nothing to like the booming area of automobiles. And he had this great story. When he was 10 years old, his dad got really sick, and Granville had to drop out of school at 10 years old to help on the family farm. Now, their family farm grew plants and vegetables, and they drove it into town and sold it to grocery stores and sold it to markets and to vendors. So his dad would grow the crops, drive it into Detroit, and sell it. Well, his dad couldn't drive it anymore. So at 10 years old, now Granville had been driving tractors and stuff on the farm for a long time. At 10 years old, Granville started driving the truck into Detroit to sell to grocery stores and to deliver.
It was a different world. Can you imagine? That would be on like national news today.
Yeah. Different. It's just so crazy. And he's doing that, and he doesn't get pulled over or anything. No. And what's interesting is there was a competitor that they were dealing with, and the competitor went to the police and said, "Hey, this kid is driving. He can't do that," which is kind of a jerk move when dad's sick, so kid's working.
Yeah.
And so he said that he got pulled over at 10 years old, and there's the policeman and the competitor in the police car. I mean, just a different time of life, right? It's like out of a movie.
Yeah,
the policeman and he goes, "Look, let's go find him." So they go over together. They pull him over, and he's 10 years old. And the policeman asks him, "Hey, how old are you?" He says, "I'm 10 years old." "Well, why aren't you in school?" "Well, my dad's sick, so I had to quit going to school so I could drive this for the family farm." He asks how much money he makes, and he tells him, and he says, "What do you do with the money?" "Well, I got to give it to my dad and my family, and I get to keep a little bit." And the policeman looks at the competitor and says, "Well, I can't give him a ticket. He doesn't have a driver's license," and then leaves and allows Granville to keep driving to and from, because the policeman
wins the day.
He only cared about, why are you doing this? It wasn't some kid, joyriding. He was just, he was helping his family. Yeah. And the police's response was, "I can't give you a ticket. You don't have a driver's license."
Which is that's the award winning. Whoever that police officer was, if he's not alive, he's in heaven somewhere.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable thought that was Detroit. That was our world. That was the United States, right? And so it's such a unique perspective that someone with that type of a lifelong lifespan can give you. And as he's describing these different things, he lived through World War I. I'm sorry, not World War I, World War II. Vietnam, Korea, the rise of Detroit, the fall of Detroit, everything he's been around. And just to hear from someone like him is a wonderful experience. But really what's interesting is as we were looking at his investments, again, I met him in his 90s.
Yeah.
Think about when he retired at 62, 63, 64. The money had to last him almost 40 years. That's a long time to have your investments last. And when you look at the different costs in a retirement, there is healthcare, rising healthcare costs across the board. That's something that has to be planned for. There is income that we need to solve for. A lot of us retire and think, you know what, if this income lasts me 10, 15 years, that's what it's got to do. As a fiduciary, we want to map out all the way to age 100. That gives us a little bit more peace of mind. And it's not insane to hear about a 100-year-old anymore. I mean, we hear it all the time. Hey, so-and-so celebrated their 102nd birthday. You see them on the news, whatever.
That Smucker's segment on Today's Show, I haven't even really seen it. I can't remember the last time I saw it. You got to wonder, it's like, do they even have enough time for that anymore? They got like 50, 100-year-olds to run through on happy birthday.
Yeah, there's a lot. And so it's not newspaper worthy anymore. Until you get to like 103, 104, you don't get the jar of jelly, right? You don't get anything at 100 except for a cool birthday party.
Right.
And a lot of people even say, I don't know if I want to be here at 100. Well,
I know.
If you are, we need the investments to last as long as you do.
Let's make sure you have money to support you.
Yeah. And what's interesting is if you look at the lifestyle from 60 to 70, 70 to 80 versus the lifestyle from basically 80 on.
Yep.
Right. So from 60 to 70, you're basically still a young person, which feels, again, kind of unique to say. But in the scope of a retirement life, you're young, you're active, you're moving, you're going to the gym, or you're walking, or you're vacationing and doing all these things. From 70 to 80, you slow down a little bit. So the first 10 years, we call it the must-go years, like 60s into early 70s. Anything on your bucket list, anything you want to accomplish, you need to do that in your first 10, 12 years. Then once you get in the 70s towards 80, we call it the might go years.
Okay.
You'll do it if it feels good, if the weather's right, if the right people are going, maybe if your grandkids are going, you'll go participate in some things, but it's not as intense or as frequent as the first 10 years. Then once you hit 80 plus, we call it the won't go years. That's when you just don't want to do it anymore. You have the money, you have the time, you don't have the desire. And people say, no, that won't be me. It is. I promise. We see it all the time where we'll call a client and say, hey, are you coming into town at all this week? Yeah, I got a doctor's appointment on Tuesday at 2. Okay, great. Well, since you're in town, why don't you come in at 12 and we'll get together. We'll cover your finances. We'll do a review and do all these things. They say, I couldn't possibly do 2 appointments on the same day.
Yes.
I don't,
asking of me.
It's crazy. My grandfather, I said he's 94. When we go visit him, now he's out in Delaware. When we go visit him, his schedule changes very little. Even though he goes from a single person in a big farmhouse to my family, which is 6 people, my parents, which is another 2 people, and oftentimes my sister, her husband, and their 4 kids. So literally 14 people show up in his house, and his schedule barely changes. He gets up, does his devotions, he watches news until 10, he watches Let's Make a Deal, Price is Right, eats lunch, takes a nap, visits my grandma's grave, and then watches baseball or something for the afternoon, and then he goes to his clubs.
People want to participate in any of that, fine, but I'm not changing my schedule for you.
Yeah, it doesn't change. The only difference is there's just other people in the room with him while he watches his shows. And so we know that about him, and so we build our lives around him. That way we get to spend time with him. But it's just interesting to watch as people go through retirement, knowing that they may have to have their money last this long. That's why people are so afraid of running out of money. And the George Carlin thing just rings so true because there is this idea of just older, longer. What do we do about that? You want to just make sure that you have a plan that is built to cover all the what ifs. When you retire, there's a lot of things you can't control. And so what we do want to control is, do we build plans? Do we actively and proactively prepare for all the different things, right? Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. Do I plan for all the different areas? Is my income taken care of? Are my investments secure? Not secure like in a bank or in a hole in the ground, but are they appropriately risked for who I am today and where we're going? Is my risk appropriate for where I am? Are my taxes maximized so I pay the least amount that I have to, and that I can keep as much money inside my family as possible? And then is my estate plan set up and secure? Is it updated? Is my trust funded? Are my beneficiaries updated? Those are the 5 key areas. If you cover those in a good retirement plan, you can be protected for the long haul. Everything you've worked for over the years is saved from bad times in the market and saved from just unnecessary taxation. We can really protect all the work. And so if you're Granville at 96, my grandpa at 94, or if you make it to 80 to 85, either way, all of the years of your life are accounted for. All the work you've done and the savings you've accomplished, it's accounted for. And you're not giving away unnecessary chunks to the government from taxes or healthcare, all those things. So that's what a good retirement plan looks like. It's a comprehensive thing that covers all those key areas: income, investments, risk, taxes, and estate planning or legacy planning. If we cover those 5 areas, you can have a very successful retirement.
Looking for successful retirement, looking for longevity of successful retirement, obviously, is key. Ensuring that your money is going to last as long as you do is the goal of every plan that Mike and his team build. So if you do not have one of these 5 areas covered, if you do not have just an income plan, let's get to work figuring out where you stand right now and how to make your money work towards you and your goals in these next, what's hopefully going to be 20, 30, 40 years of a happy, healthy retirement. MichigansRetirementCoach.com. Just click on the Start Your Retirement Roadmap Today button that you will see right there at the top of the page, and we can begin this conversation. We also have links posted in the show notes. If it's more convenient, click there, or again, the website, MichigansRetirementCoach.com.